I'm Chris Feiro from northern Minnesota. Growing up, really had no exposure to art. No museums, no galleries, nothing like that, but always drew. At College of St. Scholastica. Took my first drawing class, and I think working from observation in that class, I realized that drawing could be about something more than just making a picture, that it could be about a process, about searching for something. And from there, I transferred to the Minneapolis College of Art and Design. Typical of most art schools, was exposed to a lot of different ways of working, tried a lot of different things as a result, but eventually came back to feeling like I needed to be in front of something and responding directly to what I was seeing. When I did that, something just felt right. I felt like that experience really fed my creativity.
My sense of Chris is somebody radically involved with perception, but the fascinating thing is that Chris, in his effort to get closer and closer to the appearance of things, finds a space that actually makes the world seem a little stranger and a little more magically unfamiliar. Chris has found a place where I'm a little bit startled by what the world looks like, the way it is made of a kind of transfiguring air. And when I look at these basement pictures, I can do an inventory of everything that's there, but I can't account for the feeling or experience, which is shimmering and flickering and a little bit dislocating.
I tend to really get ideas from looking. I think some artists will start out with an idea and then develop the work around that idea. I tend to catch something out of the corner of my eye, catch something in my everyday experience that just attracts me. I feel a connection to it. And then through painting, I'll make a deeper connection to it, and I'll find out a lot of times what that particular piece is about for me. Some artistic influences for me, artists like Yoon Uglo, Edwin Dickinson, Leonard Anderson. One of my teachers that I studied with at Minneapolis College of Art and Design worked with Leonard at Brooklyn College, and I think Dickinson's influence on Leonard Anderson had made its way down to this particular teacher by the name of Mike Carrican. Antonio Lopez Garcia is an influence, Willem Hammershoy, and I think in every case what I respect about them is their commitment to a process of observation. Something slightly different with each of them, but it is that commitment to the experience of being in front of something that I appreciate so much about them.
Chris is just a wonderful guy to teach with, very dedicated teacher, very committed. And I think he approaches his painting that way as well. He's a very serious painter, very honest, very committed, and I think you see that in the work. Beautiful, honest work.
I tend to start out with a very basic drawing in yellow ochre, trying to establish large relationships, proportions, placement. From there, I'll go back into the painting probably the next sitting and work very directly. Large brushes, a lot of palette knife, and that underdrawing gets obliterated. But I find with the larger paintings, it helps me to separate the drawing a bit from the color and value relationships. From that point, it's not as clear. It becomes a little bit harder to describe what happens. I'm using large bristle brushes, palette knife. I tend to use a lot of small sable brushes as the painting progresses. I'm trying to make all of my decisions in relation to the entire painting. That's the driving force behind my decisions after that initial blocking in of things. With the drawings, the process is similar to the paintings in that I start out by trying to establish large relationships. I'll first tone the page with vine charcoal, and then I'm working with an eraser to establish my lights and vine charcoal to establish the darks. I sort of push that vine charcoal as long as possible, and at a certain point the drawing tells me when it's time to switch, when you can't get things to go any darker. When the vine charcoal is sort of falling off the page, then I'll go to a compressed charcoal, usually in a form of a charcoal pencil. I'll use paper stumps and also a small retractable eraser. So the process starts out very broad and then becomes progressively more specific. What I would hope the viewer could take away from the work is that I have a deep connection to these spaces. I find them beautiful, even though many times it's a very ordinary view, very ordinary situation from everyday life. Under a certain type of light, a certain time of day, they're really transformed. And ultimately, that's what I hope I'm able to capture in the work. Working from observation, you tend to work from your immediate surroundings. So work in the house where we live. I also rent a separate studio space. And then it ends up being its own little world. One of the great things about being an artist is you get to trade your friends for paintings. So it's people that I work with, classmates from over the years. The two paintings in the hallway are a couple that teach at Indiana University. Eve Mansdorf, also a Tim Kennedy painting, which were given as wedding gifts to my wife and I. In the foreground is a painting by my friend Jas Krabiel, who was a classmate at Indiana University. In the dining room, it's actually a painting I traded with Scott Noel for. We have snagged a Jeff Reed painting. It's in a part of the house that I haven't painted yet, so we'll see what happens.
Chris, my identical twin brother, lived in Minnesota for 11 years, but he just couldn't stand it. It was too damn cold.
Growing up there, I didn't know any better. Cold weather didn't bother me. After I left, went away to graduate school, I came back, I thought, this is crazy. People aren't supposed to live here. It's a great place in the summer, have a lot of family back there, and I still love northern Minnesota.
I was out there one summer and it was the hottest day I've ever, and the mosquitoes were everywhere. It's like you have one day of 100 degrees with swarms of mosquitoes and the rest it's sub-zero.
That sounds about right.